Timbers greetings. I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, ringing in the Halloween season proper with a review of a fresh new horror movie out in theaters now. I use the word fresh loosely, of course, because it's just another Strangers sequel, but whatever. In this vid, I'm covering the Strangers Chapter 2, which is actually the fourth entry in this series, with a fifth one on the way. To catch you up, I already covered Strangers Chapter 1 back when it came out in early 2024. Click this card or the link in the description to watch that old review, because it's been a while. When it was first released, The Strangers Chapter 1 seemed like it was going to be a prequel to the series based on its misleading marketing, but it turned out to be the first entry in a reboot trilogy directed by Renny Harlin, director of such films as Die Hard 2, Deep Blue Sea, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And Lionsgate seemed pretty confident in Harlin's epic vision for a Strangers trilogy because they let him shoot all three before Chapter 1 even hit cinemas. And, you know, I'm a fan of Die Hard 2, it fucking rules. But I don't know if anyone was clamoring for a 4.5-hour-long Strangers movie directed by Renny Harlin and cut into 3 separate films released annually. That seems like a niche target audience. The gamble kinda paid off, though. Strangers Chapter 1 made about $50 million on an $8.5 million budget. It wasn't generally well-liked by anyone, though, especially by me. Chapter 1 felt like an unnecessary rehash of the original Strangers movie.
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you're here. Because you were home.
And Chapter 1 also ended on an anti-climax because of the rest of the story was in 2 future movies, and who would know when they'd come out? Because Chapter 1 was derided, with Chapters 2 and 3 yet to release, Lionsgate decided to do reshoots for the remaining chapters based on viewer feedback, and I'll address one of the changes that were made for Chapter 2 later. Strangers Chapter 2, if you didn't already know it was actually the second act of a 4.5-hour movie, well, it feels very much like it follows the Halloween 2 approach down to the letter, where it takes place immediately after Chapter 1 ended with Maya, played by Madeleine Petsch, in the hospital after she was attacked in her Airbnb near Venus, Oregon by the titular Strangers, which also resulted in Maya's fiancé Ryan leaving her a widow. You know, if they actually got married.
I knew you wouldn't leave me.
Despite them leaving Maya for dead, when she turns out to not be dead, the Strangers take it upon themselves to hunt Maya down through the hospital, and it's very reminiscent of Michael Myers pursuing Laurie Strode through Haddonfield Memorial. There's even a point in Strangers Chapter 2 where Maya gets into an elevator, barely evading an attack by one of the Lady Strangers. Chapter 2 doesn't take place exclusively in a hospital, though. It follows Rob Zombie's take on Halloween 2 more in that regard, where it's only the first 25 minutes, though not a cop-out dream sequence like in Rob's Halloween 2.
No!
As Maya is chased by the Strangers through the rainy woods of Oregon and through a nearby farm. Strangers Chapter 2 almost feels like the missing final act of Chapter 1, which, in Chapter 1's case, that movie just suddenly ended, while Chapter 2 is almost exclusively one long chase sequence stretched out to movie length with just pure padding in between chase set pieces. It seems like with this Strangers trilogy, they barely had enough story for 2 movies, but decided to make a middle filler movie because everything has to be a fucking trilogy these days. Since Chapter 2 is mostly chases, though, I will say they're pretty suspenseful and visceral. Something a lot of slasher movies are missing these days are cat and mouse sequences, and Chapter 2 does satisfy this oft-neglected aspect of the subgenre. But the chases can stretch on and feel monotonous because the movie doesn't have a whole lot else to offer. Maya's on her own most of the time, so there's not much dialogue or many opportunities for these Strangers to kill anybody to break up the monotony of the chases. Consequently, only a few characters die, most of which happen off-screen or quickly, and I know Maya isn't gonna fucking die at any point. She's the main character of this trilogy that is really one big movie. I knew she'd be back in Chapter 3, so any suspense of the chases were kinda undercut by knowledge that Maya was protected by plot armor for at least one more film. The most suspenseful scene in Strangers Chapter 2 doesn't even involve the Strangers. When the killers lose track of Maya, they release a train boar to hunt Maya down, and the boar, for a long stretch, isn't even seen. Just the force of it attacking a car Maya is cornered in. effortlessly shattering its windows. But unfortunately, the boar is eventually shown, and it's fully CGI, and CG is usually pretty iffy in a horror movie. It takes me out of it knowing that the thing I'm supposed to be afraid of isn't actually occupying the same space as the actor pretending to be afraid of it. They could have Jurassic Parked it by mixing animatronic shots of the boar with CGI shots when it needs to move. They do a good job establishing the boar as a seeming physical presence before they show it, to try to help sell the CGI boar, but man, it's like Jaws. Seeing the actual thing is not as scary as imagining it. Strangers Chapter 2 isn't just chases, though. Maya does have some run-ins with a group of young adults who seem to want to help Maya, but the movie has fun with Maya's paranoia surrounding the strangers. The killers wore masks, after all. Anybody could be behind that Cillian Murphy scarecrow mask in this town, which is already filled with suspicious weirdos, so Maya can't trust anyone in the movie, least of all a group of characters that demographically match the people that have been chasing her around for a few days.
Why are they doing this?
Does there have to be a why?
Richard Brake also returns from Chapter 1 as the shifty sheriff, but every scene he's in, he just makes excuses for putting off investigating the strangers or trying to find Maya.
Don't worry, we'll find these killers.
It's Richard Brake after all, so you know he's probably involved in some way with anything sinister going on, but the movie puts off doing anything notable with Brake's character until the third movie. Or maybe in the third movie, Brake is just revealed to be a red herring and is actually a good guy. That would at least be one surprising thing to happen in this Strangers trilogy.
Cow! Cow!
Because of expectations of Chapter 1 being a prequel, with the reshoots for Chapter 2, I guess Lionsgate wanted to retroactively make this trilogy a prequel because what was added in reshoots were mainly flashbacks that delve into the backstories of two of the three strangers, focusing mainly on the pinup girl's origins, exploring how she started killing since childhood, and even explaining why the strangers always say,
"Is Tamara here?"
before their attacks.
Is Tamara here?
It seems to all just be some kind of ritualistic game they've been playing since childhood, beginning with their unfortunate first victim, Tamara. But explaining their backstory goes against them being strangers. You shouldn't fucking know anything about them. They should be like Michael Myers, a trio of random people that decide to kill for no underlying reason. They choose their victims just because they were there. They represent a threat of the unknown that emerges from nowhere. There shouldn't be any familiarity at all.
Does there have to be a why?
Because Strangers Chapter 2 is just a big chase padded out with a lot of filler, with a third entry on the way to cap everything off hopefully, the second film doesn't have any real resolution, with a total anticlimax as Chapter 2 basically ends in the middle of another chase of Maya. One of the strangers does die in the film, and it's an emotional moment for the surviving duo, but why are these mostly mute masked killers being humanized at all? Why is this entry sense of a closure revealing that the killers get sad? Who gives a shit? Chapter 2 does also end with a trailer for Chapter 3, and 3 does look more interesting than these first two chapters, with Maya seemingly joining the Strangers' ranks. But as for these first two entries in this Strangers trilogy, it feels like a whole lot of time spent saying very little. It feels like more happened in Strangers Prey at Night in half the time.
I killed one of yours! How does that fucking feel?
Strangers Chapter 2 is an improvement over Chapter 1, but it's still way too padded out. Like they're dragging their heels to delay anything happening in these movies because there needs to be a third film. It feels like everything meaningful will happen in Chapter 3, so I really can't recommend watching this Strangers trilogy until all three are out and you can just binge it. Watching them as they're released just feels like the cinematic equivalent of edging. I give Strangers Chapter 2 a Cutthroat Island out of Die Hard 2. Man, Die Hard 2 was really fucking cool.
Oh man, I can't fucking believe this. The same shit happened to the same guy twice.
Before I go, I just want to promote my sponsor, me. Pledge to my Patreon today to support the channel, help it continue to grow, and you'll also get access to weekly movie nights every Sunday, and archive commentaries if you missed the movie nights live. Just $5 a month to get a movie night every week. Here are the movies I'll be streaming next Sunday. Pledge to patreon.com/Dr. Wolfula if you're interested in my bonus streams, and I thank you in advance. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more videos. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged to my shout-out tier on my Patreon for all of their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Doc signing out.